All right. Do we want to hop into that article?
Yeah.
Cool. So I found an article earlier this week on NPR Music by Damon Krakowski, who's also um, he's also a musician. It was kind of a tale of two worlds: the Spotify world versus the Bandcamp world. Really interesting to kind of see some of the numbers associated with what people make on Spotify and how that is not super viable for a lot of people, and that makes sense. Versus Bandcamp kind of being organically grown, not really looking at themselves as a streaming platform, even though they do some of that. It was it was cool. You guys, what do you think, Nate?
Yeah. I mean, what I got out of it was Spotify is definitely pro capitalism, like let's make this a go and continue forging forward. Whereas Bandcamp is very much a little more grassroots, not too concerned, not as much concerned on, you know, being the mainstream revenue generator in the music industry, but kind of mirroring what we talk about on this podcast quite often, which is, hey, the music's got to come somewhere from somewhere, and keeping it, in its current status and cadence, whether it be slow or fast, caters to quality music. So you gotta pay it forward somehow. So that's what Bandcamp that serves that need, which is very much needed, very much so needed. So I don't know. It's polar opposites, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah, they're definitely polar opposites.
Surprising thing for me, which stood out, which I knew, but like you don't always think about it because you look at Spotify as this like
I know where you're going with
giant
this.
entity, is they're
Yeah,
not profitable.
right. They've never had an annual profit.
And their market cap is 53 billion, and it
It's
reminds me
insane.
of Nate, plug your ears, Tesla, who just recently turned a profit, and they're worth, I'd have to look at what their market cap is, but they just passed $2,000 a share.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and it is going to split, but that was
Mm-hmm.
interesting. And
Yeah,
it basically confirmed what I thought about the companies before I read the article, which is Spotify's all about anything audio. They're not just for the music, they're also for podcast, and who knows, it could go into audiobooks. You know what I mean? I think that's, you'll see that play. Here's a
yep,
hot,
you're
there's
right.
a, not a hot take, but a prediction. Spotify is going to get into audiobooks,
Yep.
and
Ooh,
they
that's
want
a
your
great
audio
prediction.
attention. That's all it is. It's all about audio attention. Where Bandcamp is we are the conduit or the harness to get true musicians and artists' music out there,
And they're cut, right? And to get them, they're cut,
and they get them in a
and to get
cut.
those, yeah, they're getting more money from Bandcamp than they are from anywhere else.
Exactly. And what's cool about Bandcamp is like some of the headlines you've seen over the last few months, and we talked about it in a previous episode, which is they have like, I think it's on Fridays, they'll give all the proceeds that come in to the
Yep,
artist. They will not
yep,
take their cut, which I think was it 10%?
yeah, yeah.
That's not a
It's
lot.
and in reading that, it there was a analogy in the article that hit me that made sense. It's like if a band comes to town, they're at a venue, they sell merch there. That venue takes a little money off the top for allowing them to sell it there. I personally didn't know that. You guys probably did, but that was something that I was like, oh, that makes sense to me, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know it. This is the virtual version of that Bandcamp,
Yeah, it is.
Totally.
and they waive that on Fridays, and they've been doing that for quite a while now. Pretty awesome on them, and they're the slow burn, right? They've been slowly building for 12 years, 13 years, and not going ham on trying to get all these things in there to get more people in there. And now we're just like, come here, pay the artist what you want to pay them, or what they ask for, and we'll take a little bit off the top to kind of keep the doors open and maybe make us a couple bucks too, but nothing crazy. And our artists are going to get paid, which is really cool.
Man, I love that comparison to like a digital music venue. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I wish I
Because
came up with it. I didn't,
oh,
unfortunately.
okay.
I wish, man. I wish I was that smart sometimes.
I do have some more speculation on the whole economics of it. Like
Yep.
a Bandcamp artist, there's less mouths to feed because they're likely independent or even your local garage band, which means
Yeah.
there's no label, there's no middlemen, it's just the band. But as soon as you start throwing in these like the Spotify level artists, there's a reason why the band only gets that split. It's because
Yep.
they've signed their soul away,
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and they can't go to a Bandcamp. They can't put their stuff on Bandcamp because it's the label they've already signed their soul to the label, and I assume they wouldn't allow that.
So we talked about this a couple weeks ago with Drake going independent and Taylor Swift and all those big names, right? Post, whatever. I can see this being a type of place that becomes bigger and bigger as more of those big artists say, I don't need any of you guys. I'm just going to put my own stuff out. Here it is. It's on Bandcamp. It's not on Spotify. It's not on Apple Music. It's not on any of those places. Pay me $10 or $8 for it, and you get it digitally, and it lives in that app, and you can stream it from there, but nowhere else. Like that might be what we see more of going forward. I could see those medium level artists, or even bigger than that, doing that. Not everybody, because some of them are fine with the way things are. But if you want to take some of that middleman out of there and keep some of that cash in your own pocket, if you're someone like Drake, this makes more sense to me. I could see this happening for sure. Or, him launching his own website.
Yeah, no, it's a good call. I mean, if that applied to like all sectors, I think I would subscribe to that, more often than not. Like grocery stores and so forth. Like if I could like give the money directly to the farmer and have that come through some platform similar to Bandcamp, I'd be all about that. In fact, that's a great business idea to someone, because it's like, hey, like I want to support this brand for these, whatever criteria that they meet that I, subscribe to. So if it goes directly to them, they can be sustainable without having to like funnel through Whole Foods or whatever and pay like basically lose margin, So.
Well, in the same, we talk about craft beer here a lot, and
Yeah.
I know, Nate, that's near and dear to what you're doing personally
Totally.
For work. With the boom that we've seen in craft breweries, they have now become destinations. You can get food there, you can get beer there, you can get merch there. You're buying it directly from the brewery. The overhead for them, as far as sending it to a package store or sending it to a bar, and that's the only way you get your hands on it, or a grocery store, that isn't there anymore. Like a lot of these places are saying everything's here, just come get it from us, or we'll distribute to the places that we are comfortable with, that we like, that we're not going to get marked up on. But otherwise, you're going to see it coming from the source itself. And I think with the way distribution is, obviously things have taken a little hit with COVID, but with the way distribution was before that, and the way distribution is digitally for music and things of that, like, you're going to see more of it this way.
Yeah, for sure. I think a couple things came to mind. One is I would equate, you're right, Nate, like with Spotify, you're funding the whole supply chain. And that's what happens when you go to the big box stores, where if you go directly to the farm stand, you're not funding the supply chain. You're giving it right to the source. But it also reminds me of on Shark Tank, when a lot of these companies come in and they're strictly direct to consumer online, and their whole vision is, hey, we want to get in every big box store. And the sharks always say, I don't know about that. As soon as you get a wholesaler or distributor, you're taking 50% off the top, your margins. It's almost the same type of thing. It works for some and it won't work for others.
You're right. And the smaller places that are fine, and again, go back to craft beer, the places that are fine living in their region and in that niche, it's going to be fine. You're going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a tangible, product you're trying to get in the hands of people, that's an issue. But if you're digital, the internet gets things everywhere in seconds now. So what you're doing is good, and that's what it all boils down to. So if the music is good, people are going to come to it, and no matter where it is, right? Like if people want to hear that new Taylor Swift that dropped on Apple Music 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and she just puts it on Bandcamp and it's $8 or $10, people are going to go buy it. Maybe a few less, but she's going to see more of that money.
No, it's great context. In fact, the way I was thinking about it as you guys were both chatting is the fact that alcohol is a regulated commodity. So you have to go through a distributor, state by state, whatever those laws are, state by state. Same with my industry. Well, both alcohol and cannabis is I don't have a choice. I have to go through a distributor. So therefore I can't go direct to consumer. You could back in the day with medical or so forth, but those things have changed. So if I was an artist and didn't have some kind of regulatory body that, dictated me going direct to consumer, there would be no hesitation whatsoever on my end as an artist to just go direct to consumer, especially now. And I think that's the shift that we're seeing, which is really great. I know we name dropped Tesla earlier. It's like, well, Tesla doesn't even go to dealerships. You order your car online, that's brilliant. And they haven't turned a profit, but similar to Bandcamp, I think they just know the vision is a long play, not a near-term play. and that if the heart's in the right place, that eventually people are going to realize that, hey, if you really like this artist, guess what? Now you can pay them directly, and now they can put out quality music and feed their kids rather than give 75% of their revenue to their manager
Whoever,
and
right?
record label. Yeah, I mean, there's such, like you said,
Streaming
there's such a
service.
supply chain. It's huge. Yeah.
So what was the label we talked about several weeks ago that was going public?
Oh, damn.
Whoever it was, Warner. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Warner.
someone-
Yeah, it was
it
Warner.
Warner?
Yep.
There's a reason
Warner.
why they're going public in 2020 and not 15 years ago. It's because they can see the writing on the wall, and they don't want to be the bag holders. They want the shareholders to be the bag holders. They'll get theirs
absolutely right.
long before this all shakes out, because in 5 years there may not be a need for a label.
Well, yeah, they'll be toast, right? And
Yeah.
not just them. A lot of those big record labels that employed a lot of people for a lot of years, and that's nice, especially if you're into music and that's a thing that you've made a career on. But the internet is going to make those things obsolete. The other thing is cool that Bandcamp does, and you can't do it Spotify or Apple Music, whatever, is you can order a vinyl and it gets sent to you, and
That's
then
right.
the digital thing sits in your Bandcamp if you want to listen to it there. So
Oh, nice.
it's a different, and I think the app is a tad clunky, but I mean, it is what it is. It's a different world from your Spotify or your Apple Music or whatever big streaming service, Walmart type situation, where there's a lot of people to pay. This will be a little bit less than that, and I like the slow growth. Honestly, I mean, how many times have we seen something skyrocket to the moon only to come crashing down because they overextended themselves?
Oh, totally.
I don't want that to happen to anybody, but I could totally see that happening with some of these bigger streaming services that aren't already owned by another big company, say YouTube or Apple, being underneath the Google and Apple flag. That's a little worrisome for somebody like Spotify.
Yeah. Well, to that point, that's bi-directional too, because to Spotify's game plan, which is getting the artist to put as much music in as possible, which is also burnout. It's like, well, shit, if a band's putting out a single every week, now I'm no longer interested in that band because the quality is maybe not as good as it used to be, or it's just less, there's less anticipation. So we're talking about Deftones. Like if Deftones put out a single every week, I'd be like, oh man, I'm kind of bored now. Like it's just too consistent, and that's a tough thing to say because we all love Deftones.
I do think you were talking, Tony, about Bandcamp selling the physical product. That's going to be the next play for Spotify too. They're going to want to get their greedy hands in, and it's going to be like the whole analogy of getting your product in Walmart. Like it will get eyeballs, but you're going to see 50 cents on the dollar. You're going to see 25 cents on the dollar.
Yep.
So it's one of those things of like, will you sell enough to make up for the small margins? And again, it's going to work for some and not for others.
Right. The other thing that kind of threw me and I thought was a little crazy, and it was they explained the math, but did you see how many streams a month you needed to have to make $15 an hour, which is essentially minimum wage in a lot of places?
Yeah. And that was for solo artists.
600, yeah, right. 657,000 streams plus a month to make $15 an hour. Now that's just that. You're not talking merch, you're not talking the other stuff that goes along with it. But right now, where there's no touring, you're relying on streams and people buying merch or physical product. And the supply chain is a little backed up with USPS having some issues, not wanting to get too political here. But throw that into the mix. You order something a month ago and you still haven't seen it. It's like, oh man, like, am I going to do that again? Like it puts a bad taste in your mouth when you've been seeing stuff for 2 days in 2 days for a long time. So it's crazy to me that that's how many streams you need to make $15 an hour. And that's, like you said, Tuan, if that's just a solo artist.
Slipknot.
So now talk about if it's four or five or nine people in the band. Holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another reason why it pays to have a legacy and piggyback on the old school, record label business model previous coming into this. I feel like even Taylor Swift, she obviously utilized that infrastructure up until now and is able to kind of jump off it and go into the current times. But if it wasn't for that, I don't know. It'd be hard to say. I feel like there's some people that got the sweet spot. They got the best of both. But coming into the world now, you still have to be discovered somehow.
That reminds me of Jason Newstead of Metallica fame.
Yeah.
He was interviewed recently, and they asked the interviewer, which I love questions like this, just cut to the chase. they asked him, could you survive right now on just your royalties from the Metallica back catalog? And in so few words, he said yes, because like the Black Album still sells like 5,000 to 6,000 copies a week.
That's insane.
And that's like with legacy terms. I wonder how that would equate in now. Like, it'd be much less, right? With the Spotify model.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yep,
You're
it'd be much
getting
less.
to what you were talking about, Nate, where like
Yeah.
the game has changed completely.
Yeah, it's a total sweet spot. As we were talking about, I think last week with Tate, it's like we were lucky because we got the best of both. Like, you know, we're like new school, but we're old school. You know, we like Led Zeppelin, but we also like Finch. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And both those bands are kind of like piggybacking on two different sides of the spectrum in terms of a record industry and how that whole machine works. But I mean, even Finch. I just said Finch. Like Finch, like if they didn't come out in 2002, they wouldn't have that like little bit of music industry infrastructure to like
Right.
essentially tour off of, you know, that success, you know, and to be discovered otherwise is, I don't know.
They were part of that screamo emo bubble, right? Back in the early 2000s. And I mean, I fucking love that the first album.
Where It Is to Burn.
Yeah. Oh my God. I still to this day love that album.
Great album.
But yeah, we may not have seen them if they came out 9 years later or 10 years later, right?
Yeah. How do you find it?
5 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. Tangent. Finch.
This is a good segment. That was a good
Yeah, that could
Good
have been
discussion.
a full-on segment. That was a cool article. I'm glad that we kind of stumbled upon that because we were looking for stuff for the set list all week. I'm like, oh man,